We have been bringing you all of the coverage of Mississippi versus Carly Gregg. Again, a jury earlier today did convict her on all three charges: murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. She then received life sentences for the top two charges, 10 years on the third charge, all to run concurrently. Kelly Craft has been reporting live as our Court TV legal correspondent, and understand that she has with her defense counsel, co-counsel Kevin Camp and Bridget Todd.
Yes, I do, Judge Ashley. So they just walked out of the courtroom, the Rankin County Courthouse, after hearing the verdict here in this case. Of course, the first one on the guilt phase, guilty on all counts, and then now the sentence for their client. I'm going to start first with Kevin Camp. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Give me your reaction to the juror's decision on both the guilt and the sentence.
I mean, we're disappointed on both the guilt phase and the sentencing. We knew going in this was going to be a very difficult trial. We were feeling a little bit better at the end, and we thought that I guess we were positive. And then when it came time for the guilt phase, we figured, you know, that we had a good chance to try to get her some mental help, because this was a mental issue case. And but the jury, you know, spoke, and this is the deal. So, as the judge said, these guys aren't, you know, trying to get the job or whatever. They have a tough job. They have to evaluate evidence. They have to deal with a lot of very tough issues. And then at the end of the day, we have to sort of respect what they decide.
Kevin, thank you. And Bridget, during the closing argument, one of the things that you talked about is the fact that Carly Gregg was a genius. She got a 30 on her ACT, but she didn't hide the cameras at first. And I was thinking, when you were talking about some of those things, talking about being a teen and her mother, how much they loved one another, and how her mother, Ashley, would not have put her on medication unless she felt that it was needed. I thought that would resonate more with the jury. Obviously, they came back with the decision that they did, and we as attorneys respect that decision. What is your reaction, and is there anything that you wish could have been done differently?
You know, I was really shocked, because I thought that would stand out to the jurors as well. Also, one of the things that I thought would really stand out to the jurors was the known, undisputed, you know, mental health history of her father, you know, who also had bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, which are both hereditary. And I thought Dr. Clark did a phenomenal job of explaining how you can't really treat bipolar disorder or any disorder of mood disorder until you have stabilized their mood with a mood stabilizer like Abilify, that will then allow an antidepressant like Lexapro or any other antidepressant to really start doing its job in treating the depression. And I thought that the jury, could appreciate that, Ashley Smiley was not somebody who was going to take her child's life or any risk to her child's life lightly, and also that she had had such a negative experience herself on an antidepressant that, that was not something that any loving mother, which Ashley was, would, go into without having some real thought and without the issues being very significant.
Bridget, we saw Carly's reaction. At first, there was not really a reaction when she was found guilty, and then we saw her begin to sob. Obviously, a very devastating decision. How is she doing?
She's doing okay. And I think a lot of that is because of the extremely high dose of Abilify that she's currently on, with the extremely high dose of Celexa, which were both increased last week. And I think that kind of explains a lot of the affect that you saw with Carly throughout this trial. And so I think that is helping. It's taking the edge off a little bit. But of course, there was shock. It was fear, hurt. But Carly understands that this is not the end, and that's why we have appellate courts.
Speaking of it not being the end, Kevin, kind of walk us through the process for what's going to happen next. Obviously, one of the things we've talked about on Court TV is how there's been a number of court cases, Supreme Court cases, talking about youth in sentencing. What are you going to do next? How can you go forward and structure an appeal?
Well, first and foremost, what happens is we have 10 days to get a JNOV, and that's your judgment, notwithstanding the verdict. We get that turned in, and then once a judge rules on that, those are traditionally, they're ruled on very quickly, and usually they're denied. Then we have 30 days from that date to get our appeal in. we plan to have our appeal filed within probably a couple weeks at this point.
Kevin, I want to really ask you quickly. You asked the judge, or the jury, excuse me, to have the judge make the decision. The jury didn't go along with that. I was surprised that you did that.
Well, okay, and this is the way it sort of works on this sentencing, is the jury has the ability to make a determination of life with parole, life without parole. And then if they don't make the decision, it goes to the jury. The judge can then sentence Carly to 20 to 40. So that's what she was looking. So you wouldn't have been in a life situation. It would have been up to the judge to make the decision. And the reason why that's really important, we really don't know what life is. And right now, life's life. Okay, I mean, it is life in prison. You don't get out. The legislature has been toying with that over the last few years, and people that get long sentences like this, there's some possible relief that can come that they're looking at. However, there's nothing right now that's out there. That's why it was important for us to say, hey, let the judge make this determination, because he knows if he gives her a certain amount of time, he knows what that actually means. That if he gives her 10 years, will she serve 10 years or will she serve, 5 years? And so whatever time frame that he would have given her, it would have been the appropriate time in that situation. And that's why we were asking the judge to do it.
And Bridget, one more question for you. Just curious, so right now, from our understanding, Carly has been held in solitary confinement. Is that correct? So is that going to continue until then she is has the ability to be in an adult cell and gets to the point of that age?
It will continue, and as of today, she will have been in solitary confinement for 183 days. And as we know as attorneys, you can't hold an adult in solitary confinement for 183 days consecutively like Carly's been held. That definitely has an effect on Carly's mental and emotional well-being.
And just one more thing. Obviously, people died in this case. Her mother, very tragic death. We saw that video. The state described it as cold, calculated, and cool. We lost someone. We lost someone in the community. The people have talked about that. A loving mother, a loving teacher. It's a very sad state of affairs. And always in these cases, there are victims all around.
I know, I would agree. And I think that today, I think in my opening statement, I said that on March 19th, there were 3 victims, and that's true again. And in fact, today, I think the tragedy just got even worse because now this family has to suffer yet another loss, and that's Carly. And it's unnecessarily, and I think it's just a tragedy.
Bridget Todd, thank you so much for talking with us today. And Kevin Camp, thank you so much for talking with us. All right, Judge Ashley, well, that's the latest from here. We're going to see if we can get any more interviews, and of course, if we do, we will bring those to you.
Great. Thank you so much to Kelly Craft and, of course, to Kevin Camp and Bridget Todd for all their willingness to share information with us.